At 3:12 a.m. on a moonless Wednesday, a local historical society matriarch made a $4.2 million mistake that would get her a 10-year federal prison sentence. It all began with a shattering of reinforced glass on a structure she despised, and it ended with her learning a very expensive lesson about whose projects you don't mess with. That sharp crack, like a rifle shot in the pre-dawn quiet of the historic district, was the precise moment Eleanor Vance went from being the tyrannical president of the landmark commissioned to a federal felon. You see, while I was sequestered at a secure, duty research facility developing next-generation agricultural solutions, this self-appointed queen of heritage and tradition decided my unsightly modern greenhouse had to go. What she didn't know was that the greenhouse was a privately funded, government-contracted Level 3 biosafety lab. It housed $4.2 million in proprietary genomic sequencing equipment, contained classified research vital to national food security, and I'm the kind of biogeneticist who dismantles cellular structures for a living. She thought she was removing a neighborhood eyesore. In reality, she committed federal crimes that would make corporate spies blush. What would you do if some petty tyrant tried to destroy your life's work for the sake of aesthetics? Drop a microscope emoji and tell me where you're watching from. Let's see how many champions of science are out there. My name is Dr. Eris Thorne, and 6 months ago, I thought inheriting my grandfather's house in the prestigious Oak Haven Historic District was the honor of a lifetime. I couldn't have been more wrong. Oak Haven. Imagine a postcard of architectural snobbery, where every Victorian home is perfectly preserved, gas lamps flicker on schedule, and the faint scent of boxwood hedges can't quite cover the reek of generational wealth. Landmark commission dues, $200 a month for preserving community character. Translation: paying a power-mad gatekeeper to enforce her own archaic tastes. I'm a civilian research scientist with a primary contract through DARPA, grandfather. Elias's house was supposed to be my sanctuary. It was where he, a brilliant but eccentric botanist, taught me to see the world not just for what it is, but for what it could be. The house still smells of old books and his pipe tobacco. Every squeak of the original hardwood floors is a memory of him showing me how to splice a rose, whispering, "Eris, my boy, nature's bullies are simple. Human ones require a more elegant solution." Enter Eleanor Vance. Picture a 65-year-old widow of old money who drives a vintage Jaguar and believes any architecture post-1920 is an affront to civilization. As the undisputed ruler of the Oak Haven Landmark Commission for 15 years, her word was law. Her late husband had been a federal judge, giving her an aura of untouchable authority. This is a woman who fined the Millers for using the wrong shade of white on their window trim. 3 weeks into my lock-in at the research facility, the certified letter arrived at my sister Chloe's apartment. Violation notice: unauthorized modern structure. My state-of-the-art, climate-controlled greenhouse lab, built discreetly in the backyard, was apparently a grotesque insult to the district's historical integrity. Eleanor's interpretation of the bylaws, any new construction, regardless of visibility from the street, was prohibited. Here's what she didn't know. That lab contained the only prototypes of a new class of genomic sequencers, federally protected intellectual property. The plants inside weren't just exotic ferns. They were bioengineered crop variants designed to be drought and pest resistant. A project with massive national security implications. Relocating it would require a specialized biohazard team and would set the project back by a year. The fine, $250 per day, accumulating while I was working on a project to help feed the world. My sister Chloe, a sharp-witted city archivist, tried to be the voice of reason. She scheduled a meeting, presented the plans, explained the non-visible nature of the structure, and even offered to plant a tall cypress hedge to further obscure it. "Rules are rules, dear," Eleanor had sniffed, peering at Chloe over her spectacles as if she were a piece of lint on her cashmere sweater. If your brother and his hobbies cannot conform to Oak Haven standards, perhaps he should have settled in a more industrial area. That call from Chloe, her voice tight with frustration as she sat in grandfather's dusty study, still infuriates me. "Eris, she's threatening to get a court order to have it dismantled. She said her connections at City Hall are significant, and that my job in the city archives could be at risk if I keep advocating for this monstrosity." Chloe started digging. It didn't take her archivist brain long to find a pattern. The Garcias, he's a master carpenter, were cited for a historically inaccurate weather vane. Dr. Chen, a renowned surgeon, was fined because her new energy-efficient windows didn't have the correct number of panes. Every new resident, especially those in specialized, high-income professions, was being targeted. But here was the real kicker. Eleanor's rules were a fantasy. Chloe, using her access to city records, unearthed the original Notes and Incipient Landmark Commission charter my grandfather helped draft. It specifically included provisions for discreet modernization and scientific pursuit, meant to keep the neighborhood from becoming a stagnant museum. Eleanor wasn't enforcing the rules. She was inventing them, confident that no one would have the access or the will to challenge her. The community was paralyzed by her influence. Whispers were exchanged over garden fences, but no one dared to speak up at the quarterly meetings. Eleanor had cultivated an environment where her authority was absolute and her motives were unquestioned. And that's when I understood. This wasn't about historical preservation. systematic campaign of harassment, orchestrated by a corrupt commission, resident with deep-seated political insulation, the smell of sterile air in my own lab, the hum of equipment keeping my life's work alive, and the memory of my grandfather's voice. Human bullies require an elegant solution. Eleanor Vance had just declared war on the wrong scientist. She thought she was dealing with some upstart who didn't appreciate history. She didn't realize that I specialize in finding and exploiting systemic weaknesses, and her little kingdom of control was about to become my next experiment. Eleanor's next attack came 3 days later. A masterclass in bureaucratic warfare. A formal notice was posted on the front door, declaring the greenhouse an imminent structural hazard, and demanding its abatement within 72 hours, citing fabricated engineering reports. This wasn't just a threat. It was a legal maneuver to seize and destroy private property containing millions in classified research assets. The notice was conveniently CEC'd to the city's Department of Buildings, where her late husband's former clerk was now the commissioner.
Chloe called me. Her voice a strained whisper from grandfather's library. Reese, there are surveyors outside. They're from a company called Vance Heritage Demolition. It's her son's company. She's going to use commission funds to pay her own son to tear down your lab. The scent of old paper and Chloe's panic seemed to travel through the phone. This was cronyism turned into a weapon. That's when I deployed my first elegant solution. I contacted the legal counsel for my DARPA contract, Dr. Marcus Thorne, a patent and intellectual property lawyer who'd spent a decade defending government scientists. He heard my story and his tone shifted from professional curiosity to cold fury. Dr. Thorne, this woman isn't just threatening your property. She's threatening to destroy millions of dollars in federally protected research assets and intellectual property. That's a direct violation of the National Security Act. Here's a fun fact most people don't know. When a private research project is funded by a sensitive government contract, like DARPA's, the equipment and data are considered federal assets for the duration of the project. Destroying them is tantamount to destroying government property. Dr. Thorne immediately filed a federal injunction and sent a cease and desist letter to Eleanor, her son's company, and the city's Department of Buildings. That was so legally intimidating it probably had its own zip code. Suddenly, Eleanor's little power play was on the radar of attorneys who eat municipal corruption for lunch. But that's when Chloe's research uncovered the real mini twist, and it made my blood run cold. Buried in the HLCS financial archives from 2 years prior, she found the smoking gun. A development proposal from Vance Heritage Development, her son's company. It outlined a plan to purchase a contiguous block of 6 properties in Oak Haven to build luxury townhomes, a project that would require demolishing the existing historic houses. And my grandfather's property was the linchpin, the central piece needed for the project to work. The texture of the brittle, yellowed paper felt electric as Chloe sent me the scans. The sound of her sharp, triumphant gasp as she connected the dots. Reese, she's not trying to preserve the neighborhood. She's trying to gut it for her son's profit. She's been systematically harassing the owners of these 6 properties, trying to drive them out so her son can buy their homes for pennies on the dollar. The Garcias, Dr. Chen, the elderly Mrs. Gable, we were all on her son's target list. Her crusade for historical purity was a meticulously planned racketeering scheme. Her son's project required zoning variances from the landmark, commission variances she, as president, could grant herself once the properties